The internet didn't just wake up, it was ambushed. In the span of minutes, a rumor so explosive it felt radioactive ripped through timelines, group chats, and celebrity circles like a 5-alarm fire. Allegedly, a private tape tied to Tiana Taylor, her past with Iman Shumpert, and the ever-looming shadow of Kanye West had surfaced, then vanished, leaving nothing but scorched earth and panic in its wake. No confirmation. No denial. Just the kind of silence that makes people assume the worst. Within hours, insiders claimed phones were ringing non-stop, PR teams were scrambling, and Tiana was reportedly spiraling behind closed doors, furious, blindsided, and devastated that her past might be weaponized at the exact moment she'd rebuilt her life. And then came the second shockwave. Pierre, the man believed to be her fresh start, was allegedly raging. Not jealous drama, something deeper. Betrayal. Confusion. A sense that he'd been dragged into a war he never signed up for. Because when a rumor this specific hits, it doesn't just stain reputations, it fractures trust. Social media didn't wait for facts. Twitter turned into a courtroom. TikTok became a crime lab. Screenshots flew. Burner accounts appeared and disappeared. Fans dissected timelines like forensic evidence, asking the question that set everything on fire: why now? Why would Kanye's name surface years after the fallout? Revenge? Control? Or something far more calculated? As celebrity reactions poured fuel on the flames and silence grew louder by the minute, one thing became chillingly clear: this wasn't just gossip. This felt like a controlled detonation. And if even part of it is true, what happens next could blow everything wide open. The moment the rumor hit, it didn't feel accidental. It felt timed. Precision timed. The kind of drop that only happens when someone knows exactly where the pressure points are and presses all of them at once. Within minutes, the same three names were trending together, a combination so volatile it felt forbidden to even type: Tiana Taylor, Iman Shumpert, and hovering above it all like a storm cloud that never leaves, Kanye West. No video link. No screenshots that could be verified. Just whispers that something private had surfaced and been pulled before the public could fully see it. And somehow, that made it worse. People close to Tiana say she found out the same way everyone else did, through a phone lighting up uncontrollably. Texts. Calls. Missed calls stacked on missed calls. One insider claims she initially laughed it off, assuming it was another fake internet spiral, until a name dropped in a message that made her stomach turn. Kanye. That's when the mood allegedly flipped from disbelief to panic. Because history doesn't disappear just because time passes, and whatever tension lived between them was never fully buried. It was just quiet. According to alleged insider chatter, Tiana lost it. Not a cute meltdown. Not tears for sympathy. Rage? The kind that comes from feeling exposed without consent. She reportedly demanded to know who had access to old footage, who had been talking, and why this was resurfacing now, of all times. Because this wasn't just about embarrassment. It was about control. Her narrative. Her family. Her present. And the timing couldn't have been worse. That's where Pierre enters the chaos, not as a bystander, but as collateral damage. Sources claim he was blindsided. Not eased into the situation. Not warned. He allegedly learned about the rumor mid-shoot, pulled aside by someone from his team, who showed him what was trending. Friends say his first reaction wasn't anger, it was shock. The second was fury. Not at her past, but at the idea that someone else's unresolved beef had just detonated inside his relationship. Insiders whisper that the initial conversations between Aaron and Tiana were tense but controlled. He asked questions. Direct ones. About timelines. About what existed. About whether Kanye's involvement was real or just internet. Speculation. And here's where things reportedly got complicated. Because even if nothing new had leaked, the implication alone cracked something open. Silence filled the spaces where reassurance should have been. And silence is dangerous when trust is already under pressure. The internet, meanwhile, went feral. Old footage resurfaced. Clips of Tiana and Iman from years ago were reposted with reckless captions. Kanye's past rants and grudges were dragged back into the light. Fans started connecting dots that may or may not exist, but once the narrative caught momentum, facts became optional. One viral thread claimed Kanye had been sitting on this for years, waiting for the perfect moment. Another insisted the leak was never public, because it was intercepted at the last second. No proof. Just enough smoke to convince people there was fire. What made it feel sinister was Kanye's silence. No denial. No cryptic post. Nothing. And when Kanye says nothing, people assume everything. Critics pointed back to Tiana's messy exit from Good Music, the frustrations she voiced about being undersupported, the bruised ego rumors that followed. They claimed this was payback. Not loud. Not artistic. Personal. The kind designed to destabilize, not entertain. Inside Tiana's circle, the mood reportedly shifted to lockdown. Friends stopped posting. Associates declined calls. One source says she was advised not to respond publicly under any circumstances, because acknowledging the rumor would legitimize it. But privately, she was spiraling. Angry that her growth, her healing, her current relationship were being overshadowed by something she thought was long behind her. Angry that her name was trending next to Kanye's again, when she'd fought so hard to separate herself from that chapter. Aaron, according to people close to him, struggled with the optics. Not because he believed the worst, but because perception doesn't wait for truth. He reportedly felt embarrassed, not for her, but for himself, suddenly dragged into speculation about tapes, timelines, and other men's power plays. One insider claims he said, "I didn't sign up to be a character in someone else's unfinished war." That sentence alone tells you how deep the frustration ran. As the hours passed, things escalated. A burner account claiming industry ties dropped what it called context, hinting that the footage was old but intentionally referenced now. The account vanished within minutes, but screenshots spread anyway. TikTok creators broke down Kanye's past behavior, framing him as someone who never lets go of perceived slights. Others pushed back, saying this was reckless defamation built on rumors. The comment sections turned brutal. Sympathy for Tiana mixed with suspicion. Support for Aaron mixed with impatience. Everyone wanted clarity. No one got it. Then came the alleged confrontation. Sources claim Tiana and Aaron had a heated exchange behind closed doors, not about the tape itself, but about boundaries. About protection. About whether staying silent was strength or avoidance. Voices raised. Not screaming, but strained. The kind of argument where both people feel misunderstood. He wanted reassurance that this chaos wouldn't follow them forever. She wanted understanding that she couldn't control another man's actions, or the internet's appetite. What pushed things to the edge was the realization that Kanye's name alone was enough to hijack the narrative. No proof required. Just history. And that history was heavy. Friends say Tiana felt violated all over again, like her past was being dragged into the present without permission. Aaron reportedly felt powerless, unable to shut it down, unable to protect her without speaking out, and unable to speak out without making it worse. By the end of that first day, one thing was clear: whether the tape existed or not almost didn't matter anymore. The damage was already done. Trust was shaken. Old wounds were open. And the internet wasn't done feeding. Because now the story wasn't just about an alleged leak. It was about how far someone would go to reopen a chapter that was supposed to be closed, and what that reopening was about to cost everyone involved. The second day was worse, because now the rumor had legs, and legs mean direction. What started as chaotic whispering hardened into something more intentional, more aggressive, more cruel. Anonymous accounts that had never tweeted before suddenly had details. Group chats leaked screenshots of screenshots, each blurrier than the last, yet somehow treated as gospel. And through it all, one narrative began to crystallize. This wasn't just about the past being exposed, it was about power being reclaimed. And every finger pointed back to the same source. People close to Tiana Taylor say she barely slept. Her phone stayed face down. Her circle stayed tight. Anyone not trusted was iced out completely. Because now the rumor had evolved. It wasn't just that something existed, it was that it had been shown privately to select industry figures. No one would say who. No one would say how. But insiders swore the purpose wasn't to leak publicly. It was to humiliate quietly, to remind her that certain doors she thought were closed could still be kicked open. That's when the anger reportedly turned volcanic. Sources claim Tiana began connecting dots that made her physically shake. Old tensions with Kanye West suddenly felt less like history, and more like a loaded weapon that had simply been set down, not dismantled. The good music fallout. The underpromotion. The bruised egos. The quiet resentment she thought she'd outgrown. All of it came rushing back. And if this was revenge, it wasn't random, it was surgical. Meanwhile, Pierre was reportedly spiraling in a different way. Friends say he went from anger to calculation. From emotional reaction to measured distance. He started asking different questions, not about the tape, but about exposure. About whether this chaos would follow them. About whether her past was something that would constantly be dragged into the present by people with nothing to lose. That shift alone terrified fans, who believed he was her calm after the storm. Because calm doesn't usually pull back unless it's deciding whether to stay. Social media picked up on the shift immediately. Fans noticed fewer interactions. A like that normally would have been automatic didn't happen. A comment went unanswered. TikTok analysts clocked it within minutes, declaring the relationship on life support. Twitter took it further, claiming Aaron had been warned before and ignored the signs. No evidence. Just projection wrapped in certainty. And once that narrative took hold, it fed itself endlessly. The ugliest turn came when Iman's name stopped being treated as history, and started being treated as ammunition. Clips from years ago resurfaced with new captions. Old interviews were reframed to suggest overlap, deceit, mess. None of it proven. All of it loud. Defenders tried to shut it down, reminding people that grown adults are allowed pasts. Critics didn't care. They wanted blood. And the louder it got, the more impossible it became for Aaron to ignore the optics. Insiders claim there was a moment, late, private, emotionally raw, where Aaron confronted Tiana not with accusations, but with exhaustion. Not "did you do this," but "can we survive this?" That question reportedly hit harder than any rumor. Because survival implies ongoing threat. And right now, the threat felt constant. He allegedly told her he didn't want to become another headline casualty, another man orbiting chaos he didn't create. She allegedly snapped back that she was the one being targeted, the one whose body, past, and privacy were being dissected without consent. That argument, sources say, didn't end cleanly. It paused. And paused arguments are the most dangerous kind. Then came the celebrity reactions. Subtle. Calculated. A-list friends choosing silence. A producer liking a tweet about narcissistic revenge and deleting it seconds later. A stylist unfollowing someone only to refollow hours later. Every micromove was screenshot, archived, analyzed. The industry knew something was wrong, even if no one could say exactly what. What poured gasoline on everything was the resurfacing of old Kanye behavior patterns. Fans compiled montages of past feuds, past leaks, past moments where personal boundaries seemed optional. Whether fair or not, the narrative locked in. If this was happening, it fit a pattern. And patterns are persuasive. Especially online. Especially when the accused stays silent. Tiana's silence, once praised as dignified, began to feel heavy. Some fans begged her to speak. Others warned her not to. Insiders say she was torn. Speak, and validate the rumor. Stay quiet, and let it metastasize. Either way, something would be lost. And in the middle of that impossible choice sat Aaron, watching the woman he cared about be dragged, while also questioning whether this storm was temporary or permanent. The most chilling moment came when a high-profile gossip account teased confirmation coming soon. No names. No details. Just that line. Panic followed instantly. Fans flooded comments demanding answers. Lawyers allegedly got involved behind the scenes. PR teams tightened statements that were never released. And then, nothing. The confirmation never came. Which only made people more convinced it was real. By the end of that second day, the narrative had fully shifted. This was no longer about an alleged tape. It was about control, power, and collateral damage. About whether someone's past could be weaponized forever. About whether love can survive being tested not by betrayal, but by someone else's vendetta. And as night fell, one truth settled in heavily: whatever was coming next wouldn't just clarify the story. It would change it completely. By the third day, the story stopped feeling like gossip and started feeling like a siege. The rumor had outgrown its origin and turned into a living thing, feeding on silence, multiplying through speculation, mutating with every repost. And inside that pressure cooker, the people at the center were reportedly cracking in very different ways. This wasn't about clearing a name anymore. It was about surviving the fallout without losing everything else in the process. Sources close to Tiana Taylor say the emotional toll finally hit all at once. Not tears for the internet. Not performative outrage. A private collapse. The kind where adrenaline wears off and exhaustion takes over. She allegedly felt betrayed on multiple fronts, not just by whoever started the rumor, but by the reality that her past could still be used as leverage against her present. Friends claim she kept repeating the same line: "I already paid for that chapter." And yet here she was, paying again. The anger toward Kanye West, whether justified or not, reportedly sharpened. Not loud accusations, but a deep, simmering resentment. Insiders say she believed the timing was no coincidence. That this surfaced precisely when she was stable, respected, and finally detached from the narrative that once defined her. If the goal was disruption, it worked. And that realization alone made her feel violated all over again. Because even without proof, the implication was enough to shake her world. Meanwhile, Pierre was reportedly reaching a breaking point of his own. Not explosive rage, controlled frustration. The kind that makes someone pull inward instead of lashing out. Friends say he began questioning what privacy even meant anymore, what protection looked like in a relationship constantly under public threat. He allegedly felt trapped between defending someone he cared about and protecting himself from being consumed by a narrative he didn't create. And that internal conflict started to show. Fans noticed it first. His tone shifted. His presence dulled. Appearances felt restrained. The internet, ruthless as ever, interpreted that restraint as distance. Distance as doubt. Doubt as the beginning of the end. TikTok exploded with videos claiming he was reconsidering everything. Twitter turned speculation into verdicts. And once again, perception outran reality at full speed. Behind closed doors, sources claim the conversations between Tiana and Aaron reached their most painful point. Not shouting matches, worse. Quiet, heavy exchanges where both realized how exposed they felt. She needed unwavering solidarity. He needed assurance that this chaos wouldn't define their future. Neither need was wrong. But meeting both at the same time felt impossible. One insider described it as two people standing in the same fire, burning for different reasons. The industry response grew colder. Invitations paused. Projects recalibrated. Not cancelled, just reconsidered. That's how damage really happens in Hollywood. Slowly. Politely. Without explanation. And that reality reportedly terrified Tiana more than the rumor itself. Because she'd fought too hard to rebuild her independence to watch it unravel over something unverified and cruel. Then came the moment everyone feared. A near break. Insiders claim there was a night when it almost ended, not publicly, not officially, but emotionally. When one of them allegedly said, "I don't know how much more of this I can carry," and the other didn't have an answer. That silence lingered. And silence, at that stage, was louder than any argument. The internet interpreted every micromove as confirmation. A delayed post. A missing like. A quote taken out of context. Celebrity reactions grew more cautious. People stopped hinting. Stopped liking. Stopped engaging. The message was clear, whatever this was, it was radioactive. And no one wanted to get caught in the fallout. The most unsettling whisper emerged last. A claim that legal conversations were happening, not about suing, but about containment. About preventing escalation. About stopping something from becoming permanent damage. No details. Just enough to suggest the situation had crossed from rumor into risk. And once that idea took hold, fans leaned in harder than ever. Now everything hangs in the balance. Tiana's reputation. Aaron's trust. A past that refuses to stay buried. A present buckling under pressure. And a silence so deliberate it feels like the calm before something irreversible. Because if someone finally speaks, really speaks, the narrative could flip overnight. Names could be named. Motives exposed. Lines crossed. And that's the part no one is ready for. Because if the truth comes out, it won't just answer questions. It will force everyone to pick a side. And when that happens, there's no going back. If you're still here, don't scroll. Don't blink. Because stories like this don't cool off, they combust when you least expect it. What you just watched isn't recycled gossip or background noise. This is an active situation, unfolding in real time, with reputations, relationships, and careers hanging by a thread. And the people who stay locked in are the ones who see the shift before it hits the mainstream. Right now, the internet is split between disbelief and obsession. Some are waiting for denials. Others are bracing for confirmations. And somewhere in the middle, silence is being used like a weapon. One statement, one leak, one slip of the tongue could flip this entire narrative overnight. If you miss that moment, you won't just be late, you'll be lost, trying to piece together what everyone else already saw coming. So here's your move. You like this video because the conversation doesn't end here. You subscribe, because the next development won't come wrapped in a press release, it'll come fast, messy, and unavoidable. And you comment, because your perspective matters in a moment where everyone is trying to control the story. Was this calculated revenge?